welcome to another episode of the Wrist Cheese Radio Podcast, your place for horological hot takes, taboo topics, and often unpopular watch opinions. My name is Schmidt, and as always, I'm joined by my good buddy. You guys know him, you'll love him, Mr. Bro Dinky. Bro, what's going on, my friend?
I'm taking it easy this week. I told you I had a few days off. They were glorious. Back to work now, but I'm taking it easy. I haven't posted too much. I'm just kind of soaking in 30,000 follower Afterglow and running my little contest for that Seiko, and that's pretty much it. I'll be back at it soon, but I just wanted to take a moment to just enjoy my time off and get things kind of restructured in my life for the next little push for the fall. So got a few things I'm lining up as far as, kids' daycares and things. But other than that, everything's pretty good. Just looking forward to a little work slowdown and a little peace of mind coming up, which would be nice. How about you? What's going on?
Yeah, man, I'm with you on that. Sometimes it's tight. It's nice to take a little respite and kind of wait in the wings a little bit, let the craziness of social media kind of pass you by for just a hot second before you come back reinvigorated to drop some new fires. So everything's good on my end. As always, kind of as we touched on last time, just ramping up some more business travel here soon. I'll be on the road again, but back shortly and back to record another episode. But could not be more excited for this topic. Some exciting things that we have to announce and talk about today. So I can't wait to get into that.
Yeah, first and foremost, a little pat on the back to ourselves for our 1,000 followers on Instagram. Thanks to everybody who follows along with the show.
Thanks, guys.
So that's cool. We're also knocking on the door of 50,000 downloads. Also kind of cool, which is great.
Couldn't do it without you guys. Sincerely appreciate it. It's been amazing.
Yeah, and I think part of the bump we're getting this week is probably from the little spot I did earlier in the week on 40 and 20. If you haven't heard it yet, go check that one out. That was a great time. The guys over 40 and 20 had me on for their 200th episode as a little celebration of sorts, I guess you'd say. Had a lot of fun. We kind of just ran down their show history. I've listened to them a long time. And we ran down their show history, kind of some funny favorite moments and things. And we got into a big discussion about content creation, sort of how hard it is at times and what goes into it. I think a lot of people sort of overlook that stuff and they don't realize. I mean, you think about when you have a bad day or a bad week, like how hard it is just to like get out of bed in the morning, right? Like now imagine you have like people who, I don't want to say rely on you, but they sort of rely on you for their daily dose or their little bit of entertainment or what they look forward to for the week. Like,
well, you're the bit of escapism,
right?
Like everyone just wants to kind of get out of their head, out of their situation, out of their mental space, and kind of focus on something that's not life, it's not work, just for a little bit of escapism. And you and so many other content creators provide that for so many people. And I know I consume this content all the time, as much as I can get. So I mean, I wouldn't say people like rely on you is a matter of life and death, but people come to rely on what you're going to put out there as their kind of slice of normalcy in sometimes a chaotic or hectic day or week.
Yeah, I know we had talked, I think it was off air a couple weeks ago, but just like some days where you're having a rough day at home, rough day at work, like some days that hour in the car is like your only time of peace. And like if you can at least enjoy a podcast or something, your favorite CD, what CD playlist, I guess now.
We're showing our age, bro. Yeah, we're showing our age, man.
Damn, I remember when you had the giant book of burn CDs.
Oh yeah,
because you didn't buy CDs anymore. But you also had to use your CD player in your car. So
yeah, like what's a mixtape? Like we don't call them that. We call them playlists now, right?
Yes,
like
exactly. So you had burned CDs with Sharpie written on them to tell you what it was. That was my growing up. But sometimes that's your little slice of heaven for the day, and that's as good as it's gonna get. So if you can at least improve it a little bit, it's kind of a big deal,
Absolutely.
Yeah. The only thing I regret about that episode is they asked me what I usually do to bag on podcasters, like kind of clowning ourselves type of thing, and I totally forgot about how I love to bag on like the 40-minute wrist check.
Dude, I
was thinking about all the little funny things that every pod does, and they all have the same episodes and everything. And I'm like, there's a good one in here somewhere I'm not thinking of, and it didn't come to me, and I was like, oh, the eternal wrist check where you're through most of the show, and it's it's just wrist check. So
Yeah,
that's why we
no,
don't do
yeah, yeah, for sure.
them.
I'd rather fill up that time actually talking about content and other things that are kind of important than wax poetic about my watch. So with you on that.
Yeah, but that was a great time. Big shouts to them for having me. And yeah, and welcome all any new listeners we might have got from that. So that's cool. A few drops, I guess, for the week. It's kind of a regular thing we do. First and foremost, I want to get on this Tag Heuer because first of all, we've been talking a lot of Tag Heuer lately,
Yep.
and we've been talking about sort of their momentum they're getting. They're kind of putting out some cool stuff now, and they've dropped this Aqua Racer GMT.
Yep.
Looks really good. So your typical 50/50 GMT bezel, blue on the top, white on the bottom, blue dial, white hands, yellow GMT hand, yellow accent on the second hand. They still have that kind of weird Cyclops at 6 o'clock, but it doesn't look too bad
Yeah.
on this one. It's not that obvious. And it's in the pretty standard 43 millimeter case, 300 meter water resistant for a GMT. Pretty cool. But it's nice. It has some horizontal striping on the dial.
Yep.
Everything looks very legible. Looks really good. I think it's a winner. I think the Aqua Racer is a line that needed a little boost, and I think this is it.
Yeah, I like this watch a lot. I mean, we've obviously been talking about Tag for several weeks now, and it feels like honestly, I was just thinking about this. Every single week that we've recorded an episode, Tag has basically dropped a new watch. Like every week for like the last month or so, which has been kind of interesting. So maybe that's their strategic play is just like 1 week at a time, we'll drop a novelty, drop a novelty, drop a novelty, and it'll just kind of trickle out. But all the focus is on one particular watch. But this one, I think, is going to be a normal production. It doesn't indicate that it's limited or anything
Yeah.
like that. So it's going to be a normal mainstay. But I like it. I think it's a refreshing use of color. So many people have done the Pepsi look. So many people have done the quote unquote Batman look. It's nice to see something that is obviously influenced to some degree by that because you have the kind of the day and night division on the bezel, but you have really more of the nautical theme kind of factored in there. White and blue are very nautical colors. I love the striping on the dial. Kind of reminds me of kind of waves on the ocean a little bit, or maybe like the deck of boats. Something silly, but it looks nice. And I also like that they didn't do an orange; they went with yellow, which is a great vibrant color that I don't think is utilized enough. But I think it's a good looking watch. I think given the price point, given the GMT, I think you said it right. The Aqua Racer needed a little bit of a bump. I think this will be a solid get for somebody looking for a GMT. And again, this is a tag, so the prices are going to be relatively affordable considering. I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah, 3,800, not terrible for a
No.
GMT from a reputable brand, right?
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
this will, that puts you in competition with like your Black Bay GMT and pretty much everybody in that range. So, but I think this stands up to that. It looks like a good watch. It hopefully stands up spec wise. I mean, other than that, I don't see anything wrong with it. So,
Nope. I like it. I think it's sharp. It's a very cool piece. So kudos to you, Tag. Again,
strange, strange happenings here.
never thought I'd be openly saying this several weeks in a row, but I'm being continually surprised in a good way. So
But here we
I
are.
think that's good. Yeah. Here we are.
Seiko's dropped a couple new releases this week, all in the very affordable range, and it seems like they're really hammering home this Seiko 5 branding.
Like it or not,
I
it's
guess,
here to
right?
stay,
Yeah,
man.
it's,
Like it or not.
well, you know what it is? Back in the day, Seiko 5s were all the cool watches, right? The speed timers, all the watches people want now were all Seiko 5s. Seiko
Yeah.
5 sport models, divers, things like that. So I think they're trying to get back to that. And so this week we got some camouflage dial Seiko 5 divers, which are in that format we kind of agreed we didn't really love. They're kind of
Yeah.
neat. They're cool for like I guess people who are into like that urban camo look.
Yeah.
For me, probably not, but I can
Well,
see
you're
people
not
being
you're not
it.
into a little bit of stolen valor?
Look, I'm down to wear a pair of camo shorts. I'm a bro after all. But I'm just saying, I don't know if I'm wearing that on my wrist. I don't know if that's my wrist game style per se.
Yeah, I'm not kind of in the Bape streetwear kind of look. I mean, I think it's a cool dial, especially the more kind of monochromatic camo, the black one, but
Yeah.
just not me.
Now, their other fives they dropped sort of look like a throwback to the Sonar, which is a pretty popular vintage Seiko. And this is a collaboration with an artist from Japan. His name is Kawamura. And they've made sort of the same type of dial like the Sonar has, which is like partially transparent in some places. And so they have two kind of color schemes. One is an orange and teal, one is a black and teal. I think we both agreed we like the black better,
Yeah.
but they're kind of throwbacks to that. And then it also has the rally bezel, which is sort of a rally diver throwback. I think they're just playing on a lot of cool things that they used to have that people are into.
Yeah.
And, Seiko 5, it's here to stay, whether you like it or not. But again, they put out plenty for everybody, so you can pick and choose, right?
And this is kind of a modest dream watch too. I mean, so many people have been slapping rally bezels on SKXs and Seiko 5s for years. This is kind of a nice throwback. Like you said, it's got the cool sonar style dial. Very, very interesting to be able to see the actual full date disc and day disc. Especially because you do have the kanji date there as well, right? Um, it's cool. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's unique. I think it's a throwback piece. That's really interesting. So, um, like I said, my preference is certainly the black and teal version with kind of more the red accents on it. But I think given that this is a limited edition watch, a certain amount of people are going to have access to it, and that's great. But I think this is one that could potentially go fast. It's weird enough that it might be cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. Other cool things, a really out there interesting one. Oris puts out a Diver 65 in bronze with black diamonds around the bezel.
Yeah,
This was a very interesting sort of swerve,
totally unexpected. Totally unexpected.
right? And it's funny because I feel like I have this conversation a lot, which is that they don't do a lot of precious metals and such. So
Yeah,
black diamonds were very out of left field for me. I
yeah,
think it looks pretty good overall, and I actually prefer the Diver 65 to the Aquas. I know the Aquas gets the most love, and it's probably because it's a bit of a spec monster. But for me, I'm a Diver 65 guy. I think it comes in a
yeah.
more
Me too.
friendly size, and I'm more of a circular plots than a stick indice person. So I'm a Diver
Yeah,
65 guy myself.
yeah. No, I own a Diver 65 first gen, so I'm right in that same camp with you. I think this is obviously a very cool watch. It's 36 mil. It is a limited edition to 250 pieces.
Yeah,
So it's kind of a collaboration type watch. Obviously, probably with the size geared more to a feminine clientele, especially with the black diamond bezel set. But you know, not a watch I would have expected, but not a watch that I hate. I think it's kind of cool. I love the Fume dial that they did. I love the way that the bezel with the diamonds almost becomes from a distance, it just looks like a normal bezel,
yeah.
right? You lose the diamonds into the actual bezel itself. So although it's going to have some scintillation from the diamonds themselves, it's not going to be like an iced out white diamond bezel, which I think is going to be cool. So it's kind of stealthy and certainly something that's visually interesting. And when people see it, I think they'll want to ask you about it for sure.
It's just something very, very different than I would. If they told me that they were dropping a new Diver 65 limited edition, I don't think there's ever any way I could have placed this one.
No, me either.
So I
Me
guess
either.
hats off there, right? You gotta zig when people think you're gonna zag, right? So
Yeah,
it
I mean, why
certainly
not?
did it.
Why not? Why not?
Last up, I think in notable releases at least is, and this just goes back to last week when we talked about a purple Monaco. This week, Chapek released a purple Panda, and it's got a very interesting European sounding name. It's like Fallberg de Cracovia, which is that the place? That name reminds me of two things. It reminds me of one is the Terminal with Tom Hanks. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah,
He's
but I
from
think
He's from
that's
Krakosia,
Krakosia. Yeah.
which is a hysterical movie. If you've never seen that movie, go watch it. It is hysterical, like in
And
very like
do you
subtle, dry ways.
do you know what watch he wears in that film?
Oh, we had a discussion about this once. I don't remember what you told me. It's definitely an Omega. I can't remember which one
Yeah,
it is.
it's the Omega Memomatic.
That's it. but I remember we talked about this once. But
Yeah,
yeah,
very cool.
hilarious movie and very
It's
like
good. It's good.
down to earth and fun. The other one is I can't remember where the Avengers fight Ultron. I want to say it's Cracovia, but anyway, this isn't made out of vibranium or anything, but it is purple, and I think we're starting to see a purple trend unveiling here. I mean,
100%.
even Nomos, the alternate to the deep pink, is a purple dial.
Yes. Yes. Not quite the same type of purple, but this is this these most recent watches, both the Hoyer and this new Chapek, very intense royal bloodline purple, if you
Yeah.
will. So very interesting. Now the other purple dial that you're talking about with the Nomos, a little bit more of like a purpley blue, I would think. It's kind
Yes.
of more in that tone. I would say it's less purple and more blue. But I think we're gonna call. You and I talked about this before. We're calling it right now. Purple's a new color.
It is. It's going to be the hotness going forward, I think, which will be interesting because I don't know if everybody has purple up their sleeve. So it'll be interesting to see how the executions go.
Yeah, that is gonna be certainly a very interesting execution. Do you lean more feminine because it is in some cases more of a feminine color, or do you just go full tilt masculine pieces and they're just rocking purple? That's gonna be interesting to see.
Yeah, so something to keep an eye out for going forward. Something that I guess is sort of between new drops and news. I think a lot of people have seen this as speculation. It has been sort of hinted at by a lot of people, and many think yet it is coming. I keep seeing a Supreme branded Oyster Perpetual floating around.
Yeah,
And this is a very, very interesting prospect because Rolex is just not, that's just not them. They're not that guy, right? They don't really give into hype stuff. Like they play in the park of like Wimbledon, right? That's who they collab with. They don't collab
yeah.
with hype clothing brands, right? Like
I mean, had you asked me a year ago, I would have said 100% yes. But what we learned this year with 2020 is this year was the collaboration between Omega and Swatch, something that you and I probably would have never ever foreseen
nope.
in a million years. And if Rolex does indeed do this, what that just underscores is that the Omega Swatch collaboration was so prolific that now they have to up the ante by doing a collab between two completely separate brands. Obviously, Rolex, one of the finest watchmakers in the world, and Supreme, one of the most notable streetwear brands in the world. That's done collaborations with other high-end designers all over the world, and do something that will try to break the internet again. Because let's be honest, the Omega Swatch broke the internet. Everyone everywhere was trying to get this damn thing, and even still today, people are trying to get it. I was walking by a Swatch store, earlier last week, and there was a queue still outside for a Moonswatch. Okay, this was what, March of this year,
Yep.
and we're in late August,
Almost September.
and this is still happening. So that tells you anything. So if this is the case, I mean, again, do I think it's complete baloney? Sure, I would lean to that side of caution. But if this year taught us anything, it's that really anything is possible, and that maybe Rolex needs a Hail Mary to get back into the positive limelight and to drop something that's truly hypeware. And maybe this, Rolex Supreme collaboration, if that is what it's going to be, is exactly what they need.
So that's what I'm weighing in my head is Rolex is too cool for school, right? They bow down to nobody. But a lot of people who are in the know seem to think that this is legit.
All these
And
comments from very important people, I see them, and they're saying it's legit. Now, people have been wrong before, but you and I both know sometimes when things are leaked, sometimes when things are talked about, it's because it's legit.
yeah, so I guess we
So
are going to see on that one.
I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, truly, I don't know what to think anymore. The whole industry is so crazy right now. I don't know what to think. But it's going to be interesting what the fallout potentially of this might be from all the Rolex fanboys if it does indeed come to fruition.
Yep.
We'll see.
Yes. Last little bit of news before main topic. Nomos is officially in on the charity giveaway. So big ups to them. If I had an applause button, I would hit it. So they are indeed looking like they're going to give me a Deep Pink 38 to pass along to one lucky person who is going to donate to Real Men Wear Pink. So that is awesome. We finally locked down the donor watch this year, and that is going to be it. And it's probably the most fire pink watch of the year, so that fits perfectly. The response to this whole bit has been a little bit overwhelming, and Strap Habit is actually out of 22 millimeter now. Again, he's restocking 20 and 22, but that will be the final restock for the year. So get all of your 18 to 22s as soon as possible, because I don't think they're coming back, at least not this year. So yeah, just a big thanks to everybody who's involved. Again, I know I kind of drill this home every week, but this was some really good news, and I'm very excited to bring it to you, and very excited to see what the final number is going to be, because I think it's going to be a big one. So big pat to everybody on the back who has helped out.
And bro, just to remind everybody how they can actually get entered in to win the Deep Pink.
So if you've already donated, for example, when I had like the Moon Swatch up for grabs, you're already in. You don't have to give a dime more. If you want to try to get the Nomos, by all means, you can kick in more. I'm not going to say no to that. And if you want the Nomos and you haven't kicked in before, just go to the link in my profile. It's under Bros Real Men Wear Pink, RMWP. And it links you straight to the charity page, to the American Cancer Society website. And again, $10 a play. So if you kick in $10, you get one drawing. If you kick in 20, you get two, and so on and so on. And at the end, I throw them all into an Excel spreadsheet. I say choose a random number. I go to that cell, and that's who wins. And I record it and I post it. And the other ones are still up there. You can go back and see. But again, it doesn't matter how much you kick in. My first giveaway for the Oris, somebody kicked in, I think, close to $500. They won an Oris. The Moon Swatch, somebody kicked in $20 and won that Moon Swatch. So
it's possible.
A chip in a chair is all you need, right? $1 in a dream.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So be sure to get in there if you want a piece of the Nomos. But I'm going to drop an official post and everything once I have a Nomos in my hands and everything. So look forward to doing that. Main topic for this evening is something I came up with, I think, after doing the episode with the guys at 40 and 20, because we, again, got to talk about a lot of content creation and sort of just the different avenues that both they and I had gone down. And again, they've done 200 episodes. They've done 60-something interviews, something like that. And they talked about how just from forging those relationships with people, they have done things that they're like, I never thought I would be traveling and this person that I had on previously would hit me up and be like, hey, do you want to get coffee? And they're like, I'm having coffee with like a very influential person, and not for any other reason other than we now have a friendship because we bonded over watches.
Yeah.
And it is crazy in that respect. And so I think everybody kind of started out either making an initial purchase, getting a gift, getting, maybe inheriting something, but everybody wound up with their first watch some way, shape, or form, right?
Right.
And I think you're hard pressed to meet someone that hasn't been influenced or turned on to other things or been sort of given access to different opportunities just based off of being involved stemming from that initial watch. Whether, let's say, you went into photography or something and maybe it became a career for you, right? We know people who did that.
Yep.
So just thinking about all of the different things that people stem off into from watches, or at least from the hobby itself or collecting or what have you, right? I started, I guess, just brainstorming all these little things. things that come to mind off the top of my head, obviously there's a very big watches and booze community, right? I'm friends with many of them.
Maybe a few podcasts dedicated to that, right? I think
Yeah, there might be. We might know them pretty well.
you might
But
know a
so,
couple people, right?
but just thinking about that, right? So we have podcasts dedicated to it. We have more. There are more than one podcast out there that are not even centered around that still do a pour check every
Yeah.
week. That's just part of their ritual. I mean, I think a lot of people who podcast or who are sort of into this type of thing, whether they're doing meetups in person or what, the booze is sort of just like a fun extra little tidbit that goes along with things that you can also talk about, like another conversation point. And you share things, and just like this hobby, you can get hard to get things and let your friends try it, and it snowballs in the same way watch collecting snowballs. It also
Yeah.
snowballs. It's part of being social, and hey, let's face it, we're all a little more fun when we're liquored up, so it makes a lot of sense. But that's just one thing that I was thinking of when I was coming up with the idea for this episode. I was like, well, could we actually burn 30, 40 minutes talking about something like this? Because that's something I always think about when kicking around ideas for an episode. Like, I mentioned earlier to you in the day that somebody had messaged us and wanted us to talk about aftermarket straps. Again, another thing plenty of people have covered already, but I don't know if I can. Not that I don't know if I can, but I don't know if I want to string that out for 40 minutes, 45, 50
Yeah.
minutes over the course of a podcast and make that a thing. That might get like pulling teeth, and like that's not what I try to do on this podcast. This is an entertaining podcast. We talk about fun things. We talk about off the wall stuff, kind of weird things that nobody else talks about. So I'd like to keep it with that. But I know you and I both have had experiences stemming from watch collecting, or again, our first interactions with watches, and I think we're going to talk about that too. But other things, I know plenty of people who have gotten into sports, specifically motorsports, because motorsports and watches apparently go very hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the chronograph has been monumental in motorsports, right?
You would think just a little bit, right?
So I know motorsports, plenty of people are into F1. That's very big. I mean, I have friends who have just gotten into it. I don't think I have yet. I mean, it's cool. It's not something that I'm checking out every week. And plus, I have to work on Saturday.
Yeah, I know.
So sports in general, I think, motorsports specifically. Coffee's a big one. I know a lot of people have gotten to be very, very big coffee nerds through this, right? And I think a lot of people sell coffee, watch, co-branded merch and stuff. It makes perfect sense, I guess.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people,
and entire brands have been built out of the inspiration
That's
behind coffee, right?
That's right.
We're still waiting on the Brew Dinky, but just throwing it out there.
Yeah, that was like the one of those like archive prototypes that have been like discussed and never talked about again.
Come on, buddy. We're still waiting on the Brew Dinky collaboration.
Brew Dinky, that's right. That would be great fun. As I mentioned before, photography is a big one. Obviously, watches are very fun to photograph. I think that's part of the thing that sort of gets people off about having watches, is that they can take cool pictures of a miniature device that tells time and other fun functions. And it's a neat little gadget, and you can pose in a million different ways. You can take pictures juxtaposed next to things in tons of different manners.
And we talked about this before in one of the earliest episodes that we did. It's like social media, Instagram, Facebook. I mean, that changed the entirety of watch collecting since it's been around as a concept. So photography certainly has had a very important aspect, not only in marketing, not only in social media stuff, but just in sharing content and helping introduce watches to other people, which I think has been very cool.
I guess built in with all that social media, everything else, is you have pop culture is now, it spreads like wildfire. And so I think any ties to watches of pop culture, for example, James Bond, right? James Bond is huge in the watch community.
Yeah.
And I think places like Instagram are big into that because they're the ones sharing the pictures of Connery with the sub and all the other cool Bond watches, all the Omegas recently, the older Seikos, right? There's so many cool watches that he wore, and I think a lot of people only really know more of the modern Bonds, right? Your Brosnans, your Daniel Craigs, whereas you have people like T. Dalt who were wearing like these kind of obscure watches, right? There were Gruins, there were
Yep.
all different watches that they wore. So I think pop culture is another big one that has sort of made its way into the watch community, and now it's here to stay. So to me, these are sort of the different ones that I could come up with, I guess, off the top of my head. But I guess it's all in thanks to watches, which is sort of the common theme here. So like thanks to watches, like I've split off into all these different things. And obviously my experience is a little different than most people's. I mean, it's kind of a unique situation.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that you have a pretty big thanks to watches,
I do,
right?
and it goes off into so many. Like I tried to almost like map it out mentally, like as if it was like a tree with roots.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, this goes so many different directions.
I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, you and I have both we got the watch bug and we ran with it, albeit we did this in two very distinctly different ways. I got into it a little bit earlier than you did. You got into it a little bit later, but you've taken watches yourself and built an entire reputation on social media from it. Something that, for the vast majority of our lifetimes, people have thought were kind of silly, dumb, and not necessary anymore. And it wasn't until we found community that we started getting into collecting, looking at these things and starting to say, you know what, there's something more special here than just the sum of its parts. And I mean, I look at your page and I look at your consistent rise to success and influence in the watch community. I mean, to me, arguably, not only because we're friends, but just realistically, I think you have the best watch meme account in the world. Um, Very highbrow stuff sometimes, but I'm not saying that because I'm blowing smoke, but I truly do believe it. But this has been your contribution to the watch industry. So not only have watches giving you this, you've also given back to watches, which I think is probably one of the coolest aspects about what you've done with your page and your social media and everything like that.
Well, I have to say it's rather flattering now to hear people use the term celebrity, which is absurd.
I'm starting to see that more and more, and I'm like, I love it. I love it.
It's a corny, like it's almost like a stupid joke, but it's just funny. Like when like Mike Stockton was on with the Whiskey and Watches guys, and he's like, "Oh yeah, your buddy Brodinky, he's a celebrity now," and I was like, "That's an interesting term to throw around."
Yeah.
And then I was on with Everett and Andrew, and they're like, "Yeah, tonight's guest is like a big celebrity in the watch world," and I was like, "Celebrity, huh?" Like, I don't know.
I like
Celebrities are rich and famous. I don't think I'm either, but
Hey, you're building something. We're building it together. So other than your big account and what you kind of helped contribute back to the watch industry, what would you say is something that's really kind of connected you in your own ode to watches or thanks to watches?
well, here's where it gets interesting, right? Obviously, I've had my page, which has been a tremendous place to channel my creativity. I think it's some people have a garage where they go and they do woodwork. Some people work on their old car. I guess I farm memes and make wisecracks, right? That's kind of what I've done with my restless nervous energy, or whatever you want to call it. So I've had a place to sort of channel my creativity, and growing up, I always was kind of like the low key funny guy. Like that was kind of my claim to fame. Was like I didn't put it out there for everybody to see, but everybody's like, dude, if you pay attention, this guy's funny. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know. I'm not like a boisterous person in person. Like when I'm in person with people, like once I get to know you, I'm pretty loud and obnoxious. But like when I'm getting to know new people, I'm very like reserved. Like I like to
Yeah.
feel people out. So you would never know that, but then as things progress, you're like, oh, this guy, he's a funny dude. So like that was always something growing up that I was like, man, I was like, I wish I had more of like that, like stand up comic, like outgoing personality, like person who's able to put that on display, but like I couldn't. So I guess I just found that in a way to do that
Through
artistically.
watches.
I don't know what you want to how you want to call it that, but that alone has gotten down, gotten things down so many different avenues, right? I talk about being on podcasts. I counted this morning. I have done 11 guest podcast appearances.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and granted, some are repeats. Like I've done Whiskey and Watches 5 times. I've done Spirit of Time twice. I've done Rico. I've done Two Broke Watch Snobs. I've done 40 and 20. I've done Wrist Check Pod. Like, kind of crazy
But,
that many.
but there's still some diversity there, my friend.
There
It's
is no. There's some range there. It's not just same old, and people that, oh, I'm buddy with you. I'll go hang out with you. It's not just that. It's kind of, I've kind of made my rounds, but it's just weird that many people wanted to have a conversation with me, like they had platforms before me. So like it's not like they needed me to fluff their platform. Like they wanted to have a conversation with me. So like that was cool in its own right. I have made connections to philanthropy, which has been very strange. I never thought it would go there.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of weird. I was just talking with people and they were involved, and I was like, I bet you I could put this platform I have to good. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I have, at the time it was like, I don't know, 18, I think it was like 18,000 followers. And I was like, yeah, I have like 18,000 followers. I was like, I'm sure they'd want to get involved. Like, it's a hobby that has a fair amount of money floating around in it. Not that everybody's so well to do, but kind of just what I thought about with the strap habit straps. In this hobby, people, wipe their ass with $25.
Yeah.
So like, why not put it towards something good?
Absolutely. And get something cool out of it.
Right. So that was my initial thought just before I even gotten involved. I was like, what's 10, $20 to everybody in this hobby? It's nothing. So like, not that 18,000 people would open in $10, but like even a small chunk of that it's a significant difference.
Absolutely.
So I was like, yeah, I'll see what kind of traction it picks up, and maybe it'll pick up nothing. But I know enough people that do it for Movember and stuff, and nobody's really doing it for this cause, so why not? I'll do it, and I'll see what happens. And obviously pink is like a weird color in watches. Like there aren't that many, but it's also kind of offbeat and cool, and so it's like very different. So when people encounter the opportunity to wear pink stuff, they're like, oh, this is kind of neat. So I was like, all right, I'll run with it and I'll see where it goes. And obviously it's taken off pretty well. So like, I think both myself and the people who I work with at the charity are like, I don't know how this got here, but like, it's amazing. And, again, not tooting my own horn here, but it's something unexpected that I never saw coming. And so like to go from making wisecracks on the internet to raising thousands of dollars for a charitable cause is like, it's like the Oris we were talking about earlier. It's no avenue I ever thought was, I didn't know it was in the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, for sure. And for me too, I mean, just even purely by extension, I mean, I wasn't a person that really considered anything, for charity or philanthropy. It's just not, I just didn't think that would be my station in life currently. And I was like, wanted to do something, and just through my auxiliary association with you and what you've been doing, it's like, I'm excited about it now. I'm donating money. I'm getting my buddies to donate money. And it's such a cool thing that we can share with the watch community that is really your brainchild, but it's truly the watch communities. Like this is our thing. You started this, you spearheaded it, but at the end of the day, Watch Fam has really taken this and run with it in a way that, I mean, in comparison to what we did last year and what we're doing now, what you have done now is just insane.
Yeah, if you would have told me I would be in contact with household name brands and they would take me seriously for a donation of a watch that's in excess of 1,000, sometimes over $2,000, and they completely took it seriously and were open to just forking one over, I would have said you're crazy. I would have said nobody's going to take me seriously. They're going to say what the meme dude wants some free swag, and we're just going to send it to him and hope he does the right thing. Like
Right.
that's why I had to. I tried to be as transparent as possible, and I was like, you can always send it to the headquarters in New York where I don't actually touch it, and this way, at no point am I able to scam this. Is basically what I put forward. But now that I've got a couple under the resume, like that's enough reputation to get me places.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's another thing that I kind of learned is that this has also got me a ton of exposure just to opportunities, like opportunity to meet some of the people I've already met, or to get invites to like some events that who would be like, yeah, I'm gonna start a watch dedicated page, and then one day people are gonna invite me to these get-togethers that are like semi-promotional, and like they just want to meet you and talk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? But like, who would have ever thought? It's just crazy.
Well, the community is amazing, man. The community is really amazing.
Yeah, and you don't realize how many different corners there are in it until you really get out and explore it. And I know that was kind of I guess it was both hampered and accelerated by the pandemic. But like, you didn't really get to go out and venture out physically into the community, but like you really got to, with all your free time, kind of delve into what there was to offer back to
Yeah.
you. So
And it was a way for us to come up with different alternative and creative outlets to get the information that we wanted to share out there. And I think that was, one of the silver linings of the pandemic itself. Is just people got very inventive because, for basically an entire year, the first year, it was very difficult to do anything. So, um, I mean, again, I talked about when we wanted to start this podcast, um, it was late night text messages, and you said that you'd always want to do it, and I wanted to kind of do it too, magically, and we just decided to do it. So, um, had you asked me if I would have done that 3 years ago, I would have told you were crazy.
yeah, I never thought I would even have the platform to make a successful podcast. I thought it was just going to be like posting stuff on YouTube or whatever, talking shit. But here we are, episode 45.
Episode 45.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I would say watches have taught me is sort of the appreciation for value of things, like both monetarily and not. Like obviously, when you are buying, selling, trading things that are again in excess of $1,000, those original hurdles mentally and emotionally of moving that kind of money for an object is a little bit sickening.
Yeah.
But sort of simultaneously with that is you also are able to stomach those amounts of money. Like to make that in as an investment now would not phase me.
Right.
But if
right,
somebody
right, right.
said, "Yo, you got to put 2,500 into an account for like stocks or whatever," I would have been like, "Nah, I can't do that. That's like, what if I lose it?"
But $2,500 on the watch. Here we come.
But
Let's
yeah,
go.
but now again, you're kind of desensitized to that for better or worse.
Yeah, for
But
sure, for sure.
yeah,
Our
but
wives would probably argue that it's for worse. I'm just gonna put that out there, right?
right, but making sort of a, I guess, calculated risk or something that involves a chunk of money, it's a little less gut wrenching to, I guess, move those sums now, good, bad, or indifferent.
Gotcha.
It's
Yeah.
just strange. It's straight. You go out to dinner, you're like, how much does this cost me? Oh, less than a Seiko, so that's fine.
Well, maybe where you're at. I don't know about where I'm at so much, but over there on the island and certainly in the city can get quite expensive. But I'll say the biggest thing for me that I've really learned is a couple things in watches. One for me, it's experiences. things that I thought I would never ever do, but watches kind of helped push me in a way to do them. So growing up, was captivated from a very young age about Shark Week. And it's kind of a silly story, but I remember watching Shark Week for the very first time and I fell in love with it. I didn't know why I liked it. I was terrified of sharks, I was terrified of the ocean, but there was something about seeing people go underwater, conquer fear, and do these types of exploration dives and things, trying to learn more about science, more about what these creatures really mean and represent, and how we can better understand them. I was just fascinated by these types of people. And so for many, many, many years, I always had in my mind that I wanted to dive and to learn how to do it. But it was always, one of those kind of like pipe dream things. Like you're like, yeah, well, maybe one day I'll do it, right? If I get a wild hair about me, maybe I'll finally pull the trigger and do it. And the thing is too, nobody in my family had ever done anything that remotely was considered an adventure type sport or something like that. You know, we're land people, for Christ's sake. So we're not really people that are in and around water. It's just not our thing. So, it was always kind of one of those things that I only saw people on TV do, and I thought that that was really the only way to do it, was to be somebody on TV. So, for many many years, I just kind of put it off, and finally, as you guys know from my background story, I used to work in watches. I used to sell timepieces at an AD, who shall still remain nameless to this day. But anyway, I remember working there and I remember selling all the timepieces that I could from multiple different brands, talking about stuff, what I was really passionate about. And for me, I always resonated, like so many people, even still today, with divers. There's just something so utilitarian about a diver that's just it's intrinsic to the watch itself. And it's something about the underscore of ruggedness and durability and what that watch is capable of and the adventure that could be associated with it. So there's something so cool about it. And I remember talking with clients and selling them on the fact that these watches were going to handle their lifestyle. They could conquer anything, inclusive of the ocean's depths. But I could never really say that with 100% confidence because I myself had never done it. And so it started to click with me that I was like, you know what? If I'm going to sell this stuff, if I'm going to say that this super ocean heritage can handle, diving and the rigors associated with that type of sport, I need to do this. And I need to finally put up or shut up and just get it done. And so begrudgingly, I was able to convince my wife, don't ask me how. I was able to convince my wife to sign up for some courses, to drop the money down, do the diving, and it changed my life. To this day, it is one of the most incredible, immersive, relaxing, meditative experiences I've ever had in my life. And over the course of the time that I was actively diving, which I haven't done in a few years now, I need to get back out there. But my wife and I together, we racked up almost 100 dives
Wow.
each because it was so impressive. It was so much fun. So something that was kind of always in the back of my head from a young age, it's something I wanted to do. I was pushed into it. Finally, thanks to watches, and it was an incredibly formative experience for me. It was a way to disconnect. It was a way to connect with nature, disconnect from the busy world and connect with nature. And it was a way to have a greater appreciation for the explorers and the adventurers that had come and done these things years and years and years far before I would ever experience them. And so that was very empowering. It was very cool. And if there's anybody that's out there listening to this podcast and cares about anything that I have to say, is if you've ever wanted to experience it, if you've ever wanted to do it, go do it. It is one of the most impressive things that I have ever done. And I highly recommend it to anybody. It's very easy. It's not really a scary thing once you start going through it. I think that's a lot of the apprehension with it. Is it's so scary, People are like, "Oh, I'm scared. I'm not a good swimmer. A shark's gonna eat me." Nothing could be further from the truth. Go do it. You're gonna regret it if you don't. And to me, that's one of the most important things that I've learned thanks to watches is just going out there and trying to live the experiences that we talk about. And I think the most important thing for me, overarchingly, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, especially with regards to value, I think the one thing that I've learned the most from everything in watches, certainly my time selling them and sharing in people's special moments, but in my own time here outside of the industry, for me, what a watch has come to represent today is a physical manifestation of time, right? And that sounds kind of stupid because you're like, that's exactly what a watch is. It's a representation of time, right? But what I mean by this is it's a visual reminder to me, a mental reminder to me that time is fleeting. You can't get it back. As much as we want to try to hold on to it, every second, every minute, every hour, every experience we might have through that day, we'll never have it again. And what the watch has come to represent for me now, thanks to watches, is that I need to make the most of every second, every minute, every hour of every day because I'll never have that opportunity again.
That is valid.
And the watch itself, outside of that visual reminder, it's a legacy. It's part of my legacy. It's part of your legacy. It's the legacy that we leave behind. Every scratch, every dent, every nick, every piece of character, love, patina, whatever you want to say, we put on these watches is a physical representation of the life and the experiences that we lived.
Well, look how much people will pay for legacy
Absolutely.
in individual watches.
Absolutely. And, when we're no longer here and all we have left is that watch and that story, somebody that inherits this watch or buys it at a pawn shop, God forbid if my kids ever sell my watches, whatever it might be, that watch will be a physical representation that we lived, that we experienced the things that we experienced, every death, promotion, whatever life event happened wearing that watch, it's recorded. And somebody can take a tangible part of me, a tangible part of you with them as they go through life. And I would say for me, that's probably the most important thing that I've learned from watches because of watches, thanks to watches, is make the most of the time that you have. Enjoy every aspect, every minute that you can, and cherish those moments because we're not going to have another time to do it. So live it, experience it, dent it, scratch it, wear it, beat the crap out of it, but do it.
Yeah,
That for me is it.
sort of, I guess, if you want to talk, I guess the more normie ways that it has been impactful for me, similar to what you were just talking about, how you were always sort of interested in diving, things like that, is that I had prior interests that have all sort of been, I guess you'd say, like enhanced in that regard.
Okay.
I went to school for science. I was a big science
Yeah.
nerd. I love things like oceanography, right? And I think that's why I was drawn to divers originally, not just because, I mean, they're also very stylistically cool and they give you a little
Yeah,
more
they are.
color,
Yeah, they are.
and you get a clicky bezel and all that. And obviously everybody kind of has that picture of the sub or your original divers in their head, and you don't know what it is because you don't know anything about watches, but you're like, okay, that's a watch, and I know that. And that's like a
Right.
tough watch. But kind of the same thing with you, where I was into the Shark Week and I was into, like I said, oceanography, and I used to take classes related to marine life because I found it more interesting, right? It's kind of a world unexplored, and that's something cool that watches kind of represent, right? We have watches that dive, we have watches that go to space,
Yep.
right? And it can kind of tie together a lot of these interests. I mean, you see the Alsta in the movie Jaws. Like, how cool is that? Like now,
Yeah.
you
And
see that, right?
iconic. Iconic.
Nothing cooler. You got Richard Dreyfuss running around. You got the the crazy old fisherman. Carcharodon, Carcharodon. Like he's talking about scientific names and
Like
things
a
like that.
doll's eyes, all glass and light. Yeah.
But that's sort of what got the juices flowing was things like that. You're like, oh man, like I would really love to be able to research sharks and stuff. But regardless, it can kind of tie together a lot of your interests. Obviously, I was into food before I was into watches.
Yeah.
Same thing. People are huge into food and watches. Some people put their watches in their food and take pictures. They're
Yeah, I
out of
never
their damn
got that. I
mind.
never got peak food pics, but hey, there you go. It's a thing.
The funniest thing I ever heard was somebody was talking about it once on some pod I was listening to, and the guy's like, "That's your food. Keep your damn watch out of it. That is dirty. You gotta eat that after." And I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like
Hey
having a
man,
meltdown in the car, cracking up.
PB and watches. If you're ever listening to this podcast, I'm sorry, bro. You take some actually great photos with your food. I don't even know if he's still around anymore. I know he was a big deal for a long time, but I haven't seen anything. Oh, he did post 3 days ago, so he's still out there. There's 75,000 followers. He's still out there.
Yeah, but same thing again. Going back to the alcohol, right? Alcohol, different spirits. I guess sophisticated spirits are really big. I would have never tried the Negroni had it not been for watches.
I
Right?
love
That's
a good
like
Negroni.
the watch drink, right? That's what everybody kind of.
Well, it's a very popular drink in Switzerland. That's why.
Okay, well that makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense.
it's like an after business drink or like a an after dinner drink
Ah,
in like Switzerland, Switzerland in Swiss culture. So they drink that a lot.
I guess that makes
So
sense. It has gin. Gin
yeah,
is like a digestif.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like what is it, an aperitif or whatever? Like it's like an after dinner type drink or whatever. And anybody out there that's listening, and I'm completely wrong, I'm sorry, but it's a great drink. I'm a sucker for gin. I'm a sucker for a good Negroni. So um, great drink.
Yeah, and from there, I've been put onto the Boulevardier, which is pretty much same thing, just with bourbon.
I've actually never heard of that.
Yeah,
Is it
pretty
good?
cool. Give that a shot if you have a chance.
Boulevardier.
Yeah, Buzzy put me onto that one.
Okay. Maybe I'll have to flex my knowledge next time.
Yeah.
Shout out,
One,
Buzzy.
and then you sort of have the all encompassing going back to pop culture, right? You have Bond, who's wearing kick ass watches, being a cool spy, and he's drinking Vesper martinis, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so many overlaps and
Well, everything
crossroads.
laps, man. Everything from cars to fashion to food or cuisine. You know, fine things are fine things for a reason because they all are somewhat in
Cohesive,
the
right?
same vein. Yeah, they're 100% cohesive. And when you like one, you typically like the others as well, right? You get a little bit of that taste and it's hard to get away from it, but it's watches I think overarchingly are more important than people probably give them credit for. It's not just a thing. It's a thing that's opened the doors for so many people that we know, whether in their professional career, their personal careers, have allowed us to meet and connect with different types of people all over the world. And that's been amazing to share in this hobby and this passion with people that we have never even met, but are receptive to the things that we're talking about and the things that we put out there. Watches are a great way to meet friends and to have experiences with people that you probably would have never otherwise. And I know for myself, diving is a big one. What I talked about with what watches mean to me is a big one. I'm a huge James Bond nerd as a result. I'm a huge nerd of NASA as a result. Like I've learned so many things in my lifetime that I probably would have never exposed myself to if it wasn't for something that I could strap to my wrist that gave me the time in a mechanical format. It's all thanks to that. And at one point, it was my career. Never in a million years did I ever think you could make watches a career. And yet I was able to do it. It was so much fun. I mean, hell, it is still fun, right? Not working in it so much anymore, but talking about it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so I think that's what it is for people who have, I guess, accepted that as like how watches are such a big connector of all our interests and things that it's almost like you're wearing something meaningful, like a almost like a trophy of your
Yeah.
interests and your different accomplishments and just the little fun, interesting parts of your life that you have had because of this little tiny machine.
It's a talisman. It's just
Exactly.
like
That's exactly the word I was looking for.
it's everything. It represents who we are, it represents everything we've done, and it's so cool to mark the passage of time with these things
Yeah.
and get them ready for the next generation.
And so I think that was more or less what we were trying to drive home with this episode was kind of just how significant they've become in our personal lives, even though we talk all the time about how they're insignificant because they're somewhat defunct and they're somewhat unnecessary. But at the same time, they're totally necessary. I mean, I don't know if I could see myself not owning a watch going forward. Even if
Never.
I got sort of out of the hobby, I would still probably own at least two.
I'm with you. I don't think I could ever experience the day where I decided to take a watch off my wrist. Even if I was retired, even if I didn't need to know the time every day. I've met people that are like that. Well, I'm retired now. I don't need to know what time it is. I'm like, that's a great problem to have. I still want to know because there's still 24 hours in a day, right? But no, I don't think I'll ever get rid of a watch. I will always have one in my collection because it means too much for me not to. How could you give away life memories like that? You know?
That's what I'm saying. One day I'm going to tell my kids about this little thing I wear on my wrist that got me exposure to tens of thousands of people for no good reason.
No, the reason is great. The reason is thanks to watches.
Right. So I think that's a perfect place to put this one to bed. As we give our thanks and tribute to the little mechanical devices we strap onto our wrists every day.
Couldn't agree more.
With that, Wrist Cheese Radio, calling it on episode 45. Thanks for hanging out with us on a bit of a philosophical episode. We'll catch you next time. Schmitty, be good.
Take care, buddy.